Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prose podcast, your go-to source for the art, the craft, and the business of publishing. I'm Tally Shamus, an agented writer and a literary intern.
And I'm Lauren Kahn, an author and literary agent. As former attorneys and book lovers, we're pulling back the curtain on an industry known for being opaque.
Today, we're joined by Jessica Sorentino to talk all about building your author brand. Jessica Sorentino is an author, brand advisor, and book marketing strategist with over a decade of experience working with leading publishing houses, including Simon & Schuster and Macmillan publishers. She writes The Open Book, where storytelling meets strategy newsletter on Substack, and co-hosts the Reading Between the Lines podcast. Based in Connecticut, Jessica is passionate about helping writers build meaningful connections with the readers who need their stories most.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so thrilled to have you here. Tell us about your journey into publishing.
Thank you for having me. I have been in publishing for about 12 years now. We kind of just say like over a decade because at some point you have to stop counting until you hit the next milestone. But I started my career at Simon & Schuster and stayed there for a substantial amount of time right until right before COVID, when digital marketing was becoming a thing and publishers were not quite ready to bring that on in-house yet as a serious commitment, social media, any of that. But I was falling in love with it, and I had colleagues and authors and other people in different parts of my life asking me for social help because I was really enjoying it. So I decided to take the leap and start my own agency. I left Simon to start my own agency, where my first clients were all independent bookshops ready to go digital because I had the experience from being in-house. So it just worked really well. But at the end of the day, what I really love the most is building personal brands. So that is what my company prioritizes, which is helping authors build their personal brands, start to see themselves as a business and their books as their product. So, the difference between branding, platform, and marketing, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then over the past few years, I've also collaborated with Macmillan a bunch on a launch of a new business venture for them. So it's just really fun to sort of be a creative in the space that gets to, help people reach their target readers.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
It must be so much fun working with authors to help them market their products. Actually, before we get into that, why don't you start off by explaining exactly what a brand is when it applies to an author and how that differs from marketing?
Sure. It's honestly one of our biggest conversations where, I like to say that your brand is your main character moment. It's who you are when you show up to connect with your audience and in your sales meetings and in your events. A lot of times authors are introverts, and I'm not obviously speaking on behalf of everybody, but it's a very lonely career for the most part until it's time to be published. And it's a very out of comfort zone sort of experience to have to put yourself out there both in person and online. So by thinking of your brand as a character that you get to write and, have beliefs and visions and everything for and connect from that perspective does make having a brand a little bit more of a tangible thought versus this identity situation. And then marketing is campaign oriented, it's goal oriented, and it's got a start and end date. So if you want a visual to go along with it, your brand is sort of always humming along no matter what you're working on. And then your marketing will spike as hills essentially when you have something to market. It is a specific campaign. It's got a goal attached to it, like we said. So whether that's amount of books sold or a launch or something, and it's got clear dates that start and end it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. I think it's so important that we're talking about author branding, so
Definitely.
important, because I think so many authors, like you said, are introverts. They think, I'm just going to write and I'll just write books and that'll be great. That'll be my career. The publisher will handle everything else. And that's just not the case anymore. And I'm not sure if you know, but I'm a literary agent. And so I'm always talking to editors. Yeah. Tally is almost a literary agent, so we're really plugged into the industry. And yesterday I was speaking with an editor, literally yesterday, who was telling me that when he's looking at submissions and he's looking for authors to bring onto their imprint, he's specifically looking for authors who will go that extra mile and will
Uh-huh.
create a brand and who will go to events and show up on social media. And he says, you don't have to have it now, but I want you to know that you are committing to this. And when you sign on with our imprint, and this is a big imprint, you're not just handing in a manuscript. And
Mm-mm.
so I think it's really important they hear that, because it's
Yes.
not just an industry where you can just write and write anymore. Like, you really do have to create that brand.
It's
Yeah.
really refreshing to hear you say that, because I say that to the authors that I have calls with. And sometimes I'm like, I hope they don't think this is like a sales tactic. Like, this is a legitimate, piece of industry advice.
You can quote me.
There we go. But I do agree in the sense where, I tell them all the time, like, when you're writing proposals, you can say, like, I am building a brand. It's in progress from the time I started to now, like, the progress I've put in, I've grown X, or I've visited X amount of stores, because I love to help people with in-person brands as well. Like, it's not just your digital footprint. So, just like you said, showing that you're working on it and showing that you're willing to put that effort in. You don't have to walk into the house and wait until you've got 10,000 on every platform and everything. It's that active effort of connecting to your readers and helping them sell your book.
Yeah, that is such a great point about the readers selling your book. And one of my friends actually online does this really well. Her name is Ali Wynn. She has a book coming out, I think it's this year. And she has such a strong brand. Nothing has been released yet. There's no arc. The book isn't
That's
published
amazing.
yet. But people are sending her memes and saying, this is so you, or these are so your characters, because she has built such a strong brand. And I heard you say that actually on another podcast you were on, where you were describing what a brand is. And you said it's when somebody sends you something and says, this is so you. This reminds me of you. I love that.
Yes. And thank you for quoting that, because I genuinely do. I believe that, I believe we all have brands in our personal lives before the word brand became such a buzzword that it is, where, like you said, people will text you something or call you, or even your parents will be like, oh, I thought of you. And, what did they think of you for? I'm sure if you have siblings, your parents are calling each of you for different reasons. And that's part of the way that you connect and show up in the world. So, like we were saying earlier, a lot of authors have a hard time bringing their real life into that. Writing is very vulnerable, as we all know. Putting out something that's so passion and, that you've spent so much time with can be a little bit daunting. So, you get to, when you decide that you're making a brand and you're using it for work, you get to determine what you want people to start to think of you and send you information on.
Yeah.
We were actually having a conversation, an interview with Stacey Willingham last week, author of Flicker in the Dark.
Uh-huh.
And she mentioned how when she signed with Minotaur, they saw that she was a Southern writer writing about Southern mysteries, and she lived in the South. Like, she lived in Charleston, and they said, this is perfect. This is your brand. Just post about your life. And so she posts, going around Charleston, she's at the marsh. Okay, her book takes place in the marsh. And I just find that if an author, and tell me if you agree, if it can fit seamlessly into their life, that it's easier. And so any tips you have for creating that brand or how to show up on social would be amazing.
Definitely. I'm very well versed in this, especially today, because I gave a workshop on this yesterday.
Oh,
So
perfect.
we're going to regurgitate from my own teachings. So I agree totally. When it can be seamless, like, you want it to be seamless. You are not a corporation where you should have to go out of your way to create graphics, or, honestly, having photo shoots every once in a while or batching content is always helpful. That way you don't have to make it a part of your every single day process. But I have two things that I always share with my clients in workshops publicly. And that is the first, I believe, it's on my Instagram stories today. I do believe you should go into your brand platform. Your platform is where you show up, both in person and online. You should go in thinking with the following question in mind. When you would have coffee with a dream reader, would you sit there and just hold your book up and say, buy my book, buy my book, you better buy my book? Like, you likely would not. You would likely start talking and having small talk, and that would lead to common themes and common ground and common interests. And those are the topics that come up in that coffee chat that you want to be sharing on your brand platform. That's how you're going to connect with your readers. And it's also how you're going to infuse your book's premise into regular seamless conversation, right? Like the Marsh example, if you're talking about you're sitting at coffee and you're talking about the humidity and how it is to live in Charleston and favorite southern cities, it makes perfect sense to talk about the geographic location and the setting of the book, right? So I think that's a really, really important piece to go into your brand platform with. It helps you get into that character mode. And it also helps you remember that sales have a goal, but people are going to buy from the person side of you, not the business side of you. So you want to build that relationship. And the second piece is themes, right? So we just said like you're going to find those themes in your little journal entry. You want your platform to just be present with these themes and the conversations that reinforce them over and over. You don't have to explicitly say, this is my theme and this is what I'm talking about. But when they come to your page, they should see it. So saying that she's just so Southern and her books are Southern and everything else, that is a theme that is just continuously present without her probably saying in every post, I live in the South and my books take place here. So it's, reinforcing these commonalities that can connect you and your readers conversationally, because no one really wants to see you stand on a platform and just sell your book, like you build the relationship. And then when you need the sale, you ask and they're there and they're kind of ready.
I love how you frame it as, like you mentioned, the brand is this ongoing undercurrent. And then you have these campaigns. Now, so for example, for me, I'm writing right now a gothic kind of fantasy, right?
Love.
So oh, me too. So my Instagram is very focused on that. It's gothic. But I may have other books in the future that aren't as dark. So how do you kind of maintain that brand undercurrent when what you're putting out is changing?
Wow, I love that question. Also, how far along are you in your book?
It's done. It's going to go on Sub very soon, so I'm very excited.
Congratulations. That is so exciting. We'll have to talk about that offline.
Yes.
And that's a great question. And honestly, like right now, there's so many like genre jumping authors or mixed genre authors that's such a really important point to consider. And that's where I think that undercurrent of a brand really makes the difference, because you are the consistency, not your books. Your books become campaigns. So each book deserves a place, and it's really cool that your whole platform right now is Gothic, because that is story immersive, right? Like you are immersing readers into the world of the book that you're writing right now. But you're going to want to keep your language and your tonality the same, because like even after this is over, because this is who you are, you'll probably want to start to put some language in there that this is specifically for this book, that this is, the process of it. And then, before you hop into sharing the next book, you'll probably just want to do a little palatable cleanse almost of, just author brand content. So you as writer, if you did the journal entry sort of exercise, anything that came up that you would be talking about with your readers, regardless of the genre of the book, like that would be probably what you would do. Or maybe you would do another journal entry about like connecting with a reader of the new genre and start to create content around the themes that the two of you would connect over and pull from that.
Oh, interesting. I love that.
That's really great advice. Because I am seeing more and more authors that write multi-genre books, they write books in multiple genres. We are seeing multi-genre books as well. The genre blends. But you're right. It's like I, for example, the first person who comes to mind is Ashley Winstead, because she writes amazing thrillers, but she also has rom-coms. And I've never
or Rebecca Yarros.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
I've never once questioned these authors like, oh, well, I love this book. I just know I will love this book. And it's because their brand is just, it's so seamless and it doesn't matter what they're writing.
And then there's the opposite, where a friend and I were just talking about a book where we're like, the author is not very well known, but didn't she write this also? And we're like, it's almost the complete opposite, where the titles are well known, but the author is not. So therefore, it's not like, oh, Tally wrote another book, I'm going to buy it. It's, I liked this book. What else does this author have? So it's like, did you give your book fame, or are you the pillar that is holding all of these books up?
Right.
It is fascinating. So for authors listening that might be interested in switching genres, Do you recommend changing their name? Like, do you recommend a pen name for this different genre? Or do you think, okay, yeah,
I don't, because your
she's saying
credibility,
no.
like what if you have
Yeah.
really great success with your first book?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to lose all that credibility and have to start building platform from
Yeah.
the
Great
ground up
point.
again. That's exhausting. I mean, they don't want to do this to begin with. So having them have to
Exactly.
go from the start multiple times would be really hard. I think that's where the conversation and the transparency really come into play, and that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. When you are consistent and you're communicative, you get to build a community that wants to be on your journey with you. And they might not like the new genre as much. They may not read it, but they might think of somebody else who they can gift it to or share it for you, or, you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But your numbers are your numbers. And even though, we don't want to promote artificial metrics or analytics, at the end of the day, this is business, and business
Mm-hmm.
has financial and monetary goals attached to it. So we do need to pay attention to some of that as well. So we should set
Yeah.
ourselves up for success and not make it harder than it needs to be.
Right. That's very true. And I was at an event where somebody asked a similar question where, if my debut doesn't sell well, can I just change my name and write under a different name? And the answer given was, maybe some people have done that and have found success that way, but you as an author are building a platform that readers can connect with, and you can't just
Definitely.
create a new platform for every name. You can't be multiple people. So, but along that line, I thought it was really interesting. I had also heard you mention before that you don't share everything. You
Mm-mm.
you keep things to yourself, and there are certain things that you share online, and you also don't share constantly. I guess you found your cadence. So, what would you recommend to authors that maybe feel like they don't want to divulge their whole personal life? Or, should we be posting every day? Are there diminishing returns?
I do not believe in posting every day unless you have something to say. There are some weeks I do believe I found my cadence, but the beauty with the digital landscape is that it changes so frequently. So you are also allowed to change and adapt what you like.
Mhm.
Like, there are some weeks that I have enough to say that I've shared like 3 days in a row. And then there are other days where I've shared, I think between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I was like, I have nothing to say. I don't know what to do, like whatever. And so you don't. Like, I'd rather see you not say something than share something just to share something.
Yeah.
That being said, you are trying to build a community though, so you can't just disappear, right? You need to at least put up an Instagram story or a thread or something. So when you are working with the themes concept way of putting out a brand and you think of yourself as a business, you are choosing what goes into that business and what stays at home, so to speak, right? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is part of the author business brand? And what is part of that is what you've just learned from sitting with your readers. What is
Yeah.
it that you two are going to talk about? That becomes what is part of the business brand. And then everything else gets to stay home. I also do believe that, I mean, I am trying to be more consistent, and I've got a lot of ideas, and I sometimes give myself paralysis in trying to put them out there, which is something
Yeah.
that I like to be transparent about, because I know it's a lot of the pain points that the people that we're talking to right now also struggle with.
Uh,
I've had a post idea for a few days and I just don't have a visual that feels good to match it. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
hasn't gone live. Um, and that's okay, right? Like, you're allowed to take a beat, you're allowed to figure it out, but just don't take too long, because then it's now you've got 6 posts on the burner versus 1, and it does add up. But along those lines, you really just want to make sure that what you do put out there, even if you're in person, like there are some weeks where I don't post anything, but I'm in person all week talking to people
mhm.
or connecting. You just don't want to flex all the time, I think, is what it comes down to, right? Like, you want to connect, you want to share good, bad. Um, if that's part of the brand, it's really just understanding what that brand is and what it makes sense. But the short answer to that ramble was that you do not need to post every day unless you have something aligned that makes
Mm,
sense to say.
right.
And as Lauren had said earlier, if the publishers see a consistent uptick or a consistent trajectory, that's more than enough. I also, for myself, a big goal for me this year was to have opportunities coming into my inbox. So
Mm-hmm.
meetings, invitations to launches, like whatever it may be, I feel like for me, that's a really important goal. So I made a chart for myself where I've got all of my active platforms and networking efforts listed. And then I'm adding how many I do in a month and how many opportunities came from what I did. So I can start to track and
Love that.
see, I
Yeah.
posted X amount of times on Instagram, what came through Instagram messages. I've posted X
Yeah.
amount of times on Substack, what came through there. Or I hosted X amount of workshops, what was the ROI there? And that way you can sort of start to see your efforts and what you're putting in versus what you're getting out and adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
You actually just teed off perfectly the question that I've been ruminating on when you're speaking about the paralysis. I feel paralysis because there's so many platforms.
Mhm.
I don't know where to go. I'm like, oh, now I have to get on this. Now I have to get on that. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of authors feel this way. And I know Tali and I speak about it all the time. Like, how are we supposed to write if all day we're on
Literally.
this platform, this platform, this? So, all that to say, what do you recommend? Like, what do you think is the best starting point? Where have you seen the most success? Like, where do we go from here, Jessica?
Big question. Big question. It comes up all the time. I always say everyone should be on Instagram because it has the biggest demographic cut. Most generations
Mhm.
exist there, so chances of your reader showing up there are very, very high. And if they're not, somebody they know is, right? Like that is where a majority of the population lives on social. The other platforms are obviously very successful as well, but they're a little bit more niche to different types of content.
Mhm.
So my advice is study a platform before you choose whether or not it's right for you. You do not need to go everywhere. That is the multiple underlined statement. Do not go everywhere just because it exists. You want to study a platform, learn the culture of it, learn what type of content does well there, because you can't, gone are the days where you make one piece of content and you press post like on multi-platform. So you'll study a
Yeah.
platform, you'll learn what does well there, you'll learn what type of participants exist there, even the types of engagement that they get. Like, is this a platform that's heavy on the likes? Is this a platform heavy on the followers? Like TikTok, for example, is not heavy on the follows, but it's heavy on the likes, right? That's how they measure.
Mhm.
That's how they measure success there, is that you show up on the For You page versus the follower tab.
Right.
Um, so you want to study each platform and sort of see what makes sense for you.
Okay.
And then you also want to remember that it's just because it's available 24/7 doesn't mean you need to be active on it 24/7. And this is a really, really big piece of it where we've already talked about like your consistency is going to depend on what you can handle as well as your cadence and what you have to actually say. So does your engagement efforts across platform, because once you start posting and you start to bring this band to life, not only do you have to schedule time to create and share, you also have to schedule time to engage, right? Like answer your messages. And this is a beautiful issue, but it is a time consuming piece
Mhm.
nonetheless. Um, so what I like to say for this is when you're on, and when you're off, you're off. So schedule a couple of time blocks a day, maybe 20, 30 minutes to start one time and build up as needed. Like I wouldn't build up the amount of time. I would just build up the amount of times a day that you do it, like
Mm.
3 maximum. And that's where you do all of your social stuff. You check your platforms, you engage, you do your research, you answer, you post. And then once you're done with that time block, shut it off and move away. That piece of your job is done for the day. It is very much like business mind tasking.
Yeah. That's great. That's a really great way to not get sucked into this kind of doom scrolling
Mhm.
that is really tough to avoid. But I love that you bring up Instagram because I think Instagram is one of the most fascinating platforms. I think that it's, in my opinion, and I don't know, you can tell me if you agree, I think it's one of the hardest ones to grow on and get engagement on, but I also think it's the one that provides the most opportunities. So, can we talk a little bit about the state of Instagram now? What's doing well? Like, I think that gone are the days of, reels just going viral because they're reels. I think Instagram's focusing maybe more on carousel posts, limiting the number of hashtags. And I think that saves are becoming more important. That's kind of what I've heard. But what do you think? What have you seen has worked well?
I honestly couldn't agree more with everything you just said. It's exhausting sometimes. Like you feel like you're just like talking into the void. Um,
Yeah.
It's really exhausting. But I mean, the first piece of advice I always give is to make sure you're on a business profile because obviously you'll get the analytics. And like I said, I'm not a big analytics person, but I do like to see what's working. So it's nice to, I'm not going to say like, yeah, you got 100 likes, because likes don't really translate to anything. You can, when you do doom scroll, you're probably liking with one eye open, right? Like you're just scrolling and like it doesn't, like I really get upset when people like track the amount of likes on Instagram. It really does not hold any professional weight whatsoever. But saves do, right? Like saves show that maybe in the moment you didn't have time to sit with this piece of content, but it's something that you want to come back to. So if you're going to strive for an Instagram metric, that would be one of the ones I would recommend. Carousels are fantastic. I actually prefer carousels to reels. I'm just not really into video creation. But the really good thing about carousels, and I actually heard recently, and I haven't really done my due diligence on this yet, but that TikTok is also giving more creator points to carousels versus video saves at the moment, which is really interesting.
Oh, interesting.
So I will report back, but I believe that's what I read. But carousels on Instagram are fantastic because if you skip the first slide when you're scrolling, it will repopulate in your feed with the second slide and then the third until you interact with it. So if you post 10 slides, you're giving people 10 chances to be for you to be in their face before Instagram's like,
awesome.
Okay, they don't want this. So it's really nice. So you're giving yourself a little bit more visibility opportunity. When I transitioned my personal Instagram into a business account. I made it public. I archived my entire personal history. 'Cause like I said, I like to keep a lot of my personal life personal, and started very slowly activating a new strategy and bringing it to life. So if anyone were to go to my page right after this, it's not very populated, but it is very tight with messaging. And that's because it was intentionally re-rolled out. So a little side note there is if your past presence is holding you back, there's no reason you need to keep it up and running. Like, do what you got to do. It helps. But two, to go back to that is, like I said, this was my personal account. So many of my followers are transitioning into this space versus used to seeing personal things. So my engagement was very, very low. I don't get that many likes. I do get some comments, but again, that stuff doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me more is that I'm sticking to my conversations. I'm speaking to the people I want to speak to. And I'm looking at Instagram as if it's a live website, right? So we all have a website. We can talk about other websites, but we all have a website. And Instagram is sort of that website coming to life in bite-sized pieces. So if I talk to an author or I do something like this and somebody wants to research my credibility or understand the way that I work, the Instagram is the most accurate way to do so.
Yeah.
The reason that I love to make sure people are on the business profile and they get to see those analytics is because when you log in to your profile on a business profile, you get to see your reach. And it's a number that's most often higher than your actual follower count. And it shows how many new people your account has been shown to over the past 30 days. Once you hit about 10,000, 20,000, it really compounds quickly with you being consistent. And I have found that for myself and for my clients, the authors that I work with, seeing that number continuously rise and seeing their efforts going to more and more people is very motivating to keep going.
It definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that feature.
It's so nice. I know.
It's so great. Well, one thing I've been dying to ask you about, and you've mentioned this word a couple times, and I've heard you speak about it on other podcasts, but the importance of networking. I am all about networking. That is like one of my favorite concepts. It's gotten me so many places in life. And I would just love to touch on that with you. I think I've heard on other podcasts mention that you got your first job in publishing through networking. So I would love to hear that story. I would love to hear tips. And yeah, I think a lot of people would benefit from this conversation.
For sure. And that's actually very true. I was a nanny after college. And I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but I was kind of debating. I was like, do I need to go to grad school for marketing? It felt a little silly. So I was a nanny, and the parents both were in publishing in different houses. I ended up going to grad school for psychology, which is great. So like that's I think why I have like the consumer
Mhm.
mindset for a lot of the marketing stuff. Um, and when I finished, I reached out and I was like, here's my resume. This is the direction I'm going in, blah, blah, blah. And they helped me push my resume through. And I ended at Simon and Schuster with an entry-level job in a random department with the best first boss one can possibly ever have. I literally still have lunch with him on a very consistent basis. Um,
Amazing.
and when I had called my old boss from nannying to say thank you, she really honestly just said to me, all I did was like put your piece of paper somewhere and you had to do the rest. And that to me is what the
Yeah.
networking is, right? It's opening doors. It's helping you step your foot somewhere you may not have been able to otherwise go. Um, and it's just so valuable in this world, especially post COVID. I can't believe we're still talking about that, but especially post COVID when everyone really does work from home or remote
Mhm.
and we see people through screens. It's really nice to still connect with people. It could be very exhausting now to have another phone call. So
Mm.
scheduling those times to grab a drink or even go for a walk with somebody and you really just prioritize people is all I can really say. You really don't know how it's like never burn a bridge, but also just prioritize
Mhm.
people. You don't know who knows who, when a
Mhm.
connection will come up. I had a friend the other day text me saying, I'm trying to introduce you to somebody. What's your best email address? And they didn't have my work email address because it was a personal friend, right? So you just really never know. Networking to me kind of goes back to the whole beating a dead horse phrase, which don't love, but here we are. Um, where the more you repeat yourself, the more you get known for something and the more you're recognized in that certain thing, the more people think of you and you stay top of mind. So it all really does circle back to that consistency aspect, whether you're
Mm.
posting into the void and building a little bit of like a credibility place for yourself, or you're having coffee or a drink with a friend from your past
Mhm.
or a potential colleague.
Now, I want to go back a little bit to your role at Simon and Schuster because that's so fascinating to me. Can you talk a little bit about, well, number one, I want to know what made your boss so great,
Yeah.
but also just what you did there, what you learned, how that impacted you, and how you still kind of pull from that if you do now.
Hmm. Well, he was just the best boss ever, and he trusted. He had a small team. He did not micromanage. I was his assistant, and like the sort of face, quote unquote, of his department. So aside from being his assistant, if, I ran the email inbox for the entire department, right? Not each person's, but the department's inbox. So as work came in, I was the interceptor and the person who redelivered it at the end of the day. So he was just really great because he didn't, like I said, he wasn't a micromanager and he also just trusted his team that he hired the right people. And there was actually one time I would answer emails like as they came in. I cannot stand notifications. So I would see an email, I would stop what I was doing, answer it, and send it back. And he got really frustrated with me because he was like, when you're out, the person who covers you is not doing that. And then I get the phone call that like the emails are slowing down. So he's like, you can't,
Oh
you're
my
setting
God.
up a bad expectation. So even it really did teach me that even if you're doing something good, you're setting the expectation with other people. And that is the business
Yeah.
side of authorship, right? So you taking the advice we shared earlier of making specific times to be on social, it's like your business hours. You don't need to be answering a DM at 3 in the morning because then
Mhm.
at the end of the day, somebody might expect you to answer at 3 in the morning another time and you
That is
might be
such a
sleeping.
good point.
So
Yeah.
that was really helpful
Yeah.
advice. And then when I was ready to move on, so this was the pre-press department. Simon and Schuster actually had their own pre-press in-house, which is the final step before the book goes to print. And it was mostly used for coffee table books, book covers, and children's books because it proofed out what the book pages would look like with color and corrections and all
Mm.
of that before it would be officially approved to go to the printer because what you see on the computer is not always how it translates when it's printed. So that was the department. So the coolest part was it was the final step of the process essentially. So I got to see the books right before they would be going out the door. And what I would the person I would talk to most would be the cover designers. So it was really fun to see and really connect with them. I'm by nature very curious. So learning what made them choose that design for that cover, or why that artist was, or that art director was chosen for that particular book, and everything else. So that was something I do bring along with me, is the whole judge a book by its cover and how it really does come into play. Shame right now, so many book covers look the same. I forget if I've read a book or not. But he was also really great because when it was time for me to move on, I had the opportunity to move into the sales and marketing teams. I was scared to leave, and he was just like, it's your time. Like, he's like, I can offer you a career down here, but I don't think you would be happy. Like, it's time for you to go do what you want to be doing. So he really supported me on my career growth, my lateral moves, my independent moves, everything. And to this day, if I have a question, or just, aside from just chatting and hanging out, he's still my first call. So
I love that.
Those early bosses are so important.
They're so important.
So important.
Yeah.
And I really love what you said about that email tip. That is actually, I think it goes both ways. This ease of communication, like once you have access to someone, especially now we're on Instagram, it's very easy to ask people. Like, I mean, even just getting guests on this podcast, I am blown away by people that are responding because they have this platform, which is amazing. But it's, really important for people to remember, okay, just because this exists doesn't mean you can just abuse it and just send out messages. And I'm always so excited when people reach out to me with publishing questions, but I was getting some random DMs on TikTok recently, and it was just like, can we just set up a call so I can pick your brain? And I was like, do not use the words pick your brain, guys.
No.
Like, I'm right, it is like, so it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. It is grating. And this part of this networking is it's an art. And you need to show, well, how can I do something for you? And also you're doing something for me, not just, I'm just going to sit there and just literally, the phrase, pick your brain.
It's so creepy, isn't it? Like, I think about that too. I'm like, I picture somebody going like this, like through my brain. I'm like, I hate that. It's
literally.
So
I would just say I'm always like, I love giving publishing advice. And I would say majority of people are so kind and are, they're so respectful. But then sometimes you just get this. And it was like someone from across the world. And I was just like, I'm glad this video made it to you. But also, like, why don't you just leave a comment and maybe I'll respond with a video back that it can, and then it can reach more people. But we're not just going to set up a call for hours for you to pick my brain. I don't have that time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it really goes, like you said, it's very value based, but like you guys have things like this show and your platforms and your work, that this is your free value. And I do not believe that we should be charging like $1 for a minute for people who want to learn from us.
For sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to have boundaries too. And I think that people forget that because it's such an ambiguous career or industry that they just, what we say then leads to more questions, and those questions lead to more questions, and that's great. But we're allowed to like also say, I'm off today, or I'm not, that's not part of my calendar link or something. And it really does go back to, I think, treating us all individually as businesses. And it does sound so cold to say it like that, but when we go to work, we do certain tasks and then we go home, or we used to, at least before we worked from home. But when you're an author, your primary goal is to write, and that's the bottom line. You need to write your book, but you have to answer your emails. You have to worry about your finances. You have to build your community, and you have to do all of that before you actually need it. That's, to me, the biggest piece. Like, don't wait to network, or don't wait to start your platform until your publisher says so. Do it now. Get your jitters out, get comfortable, trial and error, and flex those muscles. That way, when you do need it, it's just second nature.
I completely agree. And I do think, you've already touched on this, but that ability to time block and say, okay, 5 to 7 a.m. I'm writing, but then, okay, from 7 to 8, now I'm on social. It just helps compartmentalize, because you're not getting writing done, and it's not good writing, at least if you're bouncing between, let me just answer this DM, now I'm back in the writing. No, you need to actually, when it comes to writing, like, this is one of those careers where you have to sit with it. And so I love the concept of I'm time blocking. I think that's so smart.
I will say, though, do not fall into the trap, which I do many a time and I get called out on, of procrastination via productivity. Like,
Oh, yes.
do not spend so much time making your schedule or saying, I'm going to do it later or whatever, that you procrastinate
Yeah.
so long, but you felt like you got something done, because that is just not going to work either. So
true.
set it,
Yeah.
try it. If it doesn't work, give it a couple weeks. If it doesn't work, fix it.
That's very true. I guess this kind of leads to the discussion of pitfalls that authors might stumble into. So, you mentioned this productivity that's not actually productive. You mentioned trial and error. So, what are some things you've seen have worked for writers, and what are some things that maybe haven't really helped them create that brand?
So I think the biggest one is misjudging timing and expectations. So we've discussed timing a lot already, but also misjudging the expectations. So expecting that, okay, you activate this author platform and now all of a sudden you're going to be rolling in the DMs and the likes and go viral and have this big platform. And, that's quite often, a lot of times authors do not really create high caliber content. Like, they're not content creators, and nor should they need to be, but they're not, it's a new skill they have to learn. So that misjudgment of what it's going to do for their career is a really, really big one. And I do think that what having a platform and having a brand actually does for your career is give you opportunities and open doors. So it's like wide casting net networking with people you didn't even know you knew. And like you said, Lauren, earlier, it shows that you're willing to put your own stake in the game, where publishing itself is a gamble-based industry. They're choosing to take a bet on you. And when you have a platform, you're also taking a bet on yourself, and you're making it easier for them to justify their bet on you.
That just makes me think of this video I was watching yesterday on Polymarket. And I was thinking, how long before this becomes really prevalent in writing, where we're betting on when books will come out and who's going to get a deal and how many words you'll write in a day?
That's actually really scary, because creativity cannot be done like that.
Yeah, it's scary. That's actually really fascinating in terms of like not going into something expecting to go viral. And I think that, we can talk about the importance of virality versus just showing up consistently and building this network and community.
Yeah, I think when you go viral, going viral by definition means you've reached a very large amount of people. So we don't know who you're reaching, though. You're most likely going viral in a more general demographic than you are in your niche demographic of who you're trying to reach. So it doesn't make sense to prioritize going viral, in my opinion, because if you go viral and then people come and look at you and all you did was try to go viral, when they came to your pages, they would know nothing about you and they would not know how to stick around. So you want to make sure you're showing up consistently, and sure, add some trends in there if that's fun for you. If you want to have the opportunity to go viral, do it in a way that will reach the people that you're trying to reach anyway. And it might be harder, but it will then make people stick around. So many things that I see and share with my friends that are on the more viral side are accounts I don't follow, would never follow, couldn't even tell you the names of. So what's that doing for my career, your career? It's not doing anything for anyone's career, really, except for the creator, which is great for them. But if you are trying to build a platform and really reach people, like, yes, seeing those numbers go up, see that million, see all that is really invigorating. It's just not going to move the needle the way most people think it does most of the time. So
that's such a great point. Yeah, I will say, 'cause on TikTok a few years ago, I don't even think this would go viral now, but I made a couple pop culture videos. Like, there was one about the White Lotus and I got 1 million views. But if I had 2 followers, and if you come to my page, it's still there, but no one followed me from that video because there was no other video, and it was just this one random video. And okay, great, you got 1 million views, but who are
now
you?
what? Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I will say it's actually kind of a fun activity to do at the beginning of the month, is to just put your pulse on the culture for a minute. What are people talking about?
I love that.
What are the common conversation themes? Make a big list, even if they don't relate to what you're saying or talking about, and then see from that list, combined with your list, what makes sense as a crossover, and then participate in those themes. I personally am a big hobby person. I love having hobbies. I've been working on it in my head, trying to figure out how what I've learned like through needle pointing and everything, I can cross over into like the talks for authors.
Mm,
But I'm not there yet,
love
right?
that.
So I'm just sort of like,
Yeah.
again, following the space, learning the culture,
Mhm.
seeing how they can start to overlap a little bit. Um, and that's kind of all you can really do. But if you know the conversations people are having, you have the chance of reaching more people if you join in on them or start your own thought leadership on them. But you
Yeah.
kind of still want to make sure they're the ones that you would share over that like author coffee chat with your reader to make sure you're still connecting the right way.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that.
And I guess also with the virality viral posts, it's really what you do with them. So sure, if you get a post that, is just a funny meme that goes viral and you can't really take that anywhere. But I have seen authors have success with, a post. I can't remember who this was. Lauren, maybe you'll know, but it was a thriller writer who had a TikTok go viral that was basically, I think her book was about a woman that had disappeared. And the TikTok was like, what would you do if your sister came back after a year missing? Something like that. Like, this is where my
Mhm.
sister went missing.
Wait, that's
Now
a
it's a
really
year
good
later.
TikTok.
It was so good and it went viral. And because of that, the author was able to go on all these outlets like Good Morning America and whatnot and get a lot of views on the log
Mm,
line, the pitch for the book. So,
That's
that's like taking
amazing.
a viral moment. Yeah. And
so
turning it
smart.
into something.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the goal, right? Like we want to use these platforms to build community and to enhance our experiences. So I would imagine I'm gonna have to like go and find that TikTok now that you've said that.
Yeah.
But I would be curious to study what she had posted prior to that one and what she had posted
Yeah.
after because for something to go viral, most often people are doing research on you also to see the types of people who like it, especially on TikTok with such a strong algorithm, influences who it shows it to moving forward and helps push it
Yeah.
out. So, what types of For You pages was that showing up on based
Mhm.
on what
Mhm.
she's already
Yeah.
shared, right? So, I think that
Mhm.
would be interesting to learn. I do have one client who's making a coffee table book, and he's gone pretty viral on multiple platforms, including Facebook. It's taken him a year, but he's now like getting 750,000 views on Facebook too. But again, that
Wow.
has been his
Amazing.
most difficult platform to activate to date. And
Mhm.
and it's content is his priority to get the book out. He is doing self-publishing. He is doing this by himself and he is a content creator, so he knows what he's doing. And to be fair though, he is a content creator, but he is not using his personal platform. He has created separate platforms for this project.
Oh, okay.
But he's doing, content creator mindset things where he's wearing the same color shirt in every video that
Mhm.
he does across platform because he knows that algorithms feed you what you're interested in. So he wants to make sure you recognize him or recognize this is him
Mm,
talking about this project. And,
Mm.
that's
you
so
know,
smart.
it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on YouTube, it's now on Facebook. Everywhere I turn, I'm like, "Go you, you're doing a great job." But, he's very burnt out, like, it's not an
Yeah.
easy thing.
Yeah.
However, the book hasn't launched yet, and his presale numbers are through the roof for a self-published
Ugh,
coffee table
It's amazing.
like,
amazing.
debut. So, he knew his goal going in was, "I am going to commit to this and make my digital platform how I get this book into the world." And so for him, it's his priorities are equal parts content and writing. So, you have to put a lot of time in if you want to really use social to that level of extreme.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, I think, from this conversation, from what I'm hearing, like it's just a part of the world now. This is a part of
Mhm.
being an author. And so if you have any, final tips, like big tips that someone can take away from this episode and, really implement into their writing career, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. I would love to say that it doesn't matter whether you're a self-published or traditionally published unless it matters to you. There
Mm,
are many, many ways to get your books in readers' hands right now. And I think the question you should be asking yourself is it more important that I'm published by X or that my book is in readers' hands? And then you get to make your next steps. That's number one. And number two is don't be afraid to evolve. The platforms evolve, the industries evolve, you
mhm.
as a human being evolves. So don't be afraid to evolve with your platform, with the conversations you're having, with the way that you're showing up. You're allowed to get better. You're allowed to take a breather. You're allowed to be you. And just proud of you all. I'm really grateful that everybody is trying to spearhead their own success, essentially, and take part in putting a big piece of their passion into an actual career.
It is really great. It's just so amazing having the idea, putting it into a book, and being able to see that in front of you.
Oh my gosh, bringing a world to life. I can't even imagine. It's just so creative and amazing. So,
well, thank you for helping people get there, and thank you for joining us today. This has been such an incredible podcast.
Thank you for having me. I also enjoyed it very much.
And thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and remember to check back next Tuesday for a new episode of the Pros podcast.